I hadn't expected to get someone like Arjun as my roommate. Tall, lean, with that effortless charm some guys just carry like second skin. He was the kind of guy who looked good even half asleep with a toothbrush hanging from his mouth. From the moment he walked into our shared hostel room, backpack slung over one shoulder, messy hair and lazy smile, I felt something shift in my chest. I told myself it was just admiration. It wasn't. I'm Karan. Quiet. Observant. The kind of guy who blends in at the back of the classroom and disappears before the chai stall gets crowded. I didn't ask for a roommate. But in a hostel, privacy is a myth, and preference doesn't count for much. When Arjun dropped his bag, took off his jacket and said, "Guess we're stuck together," I smiled like a polite stranger. Inside I panicked. He was straight. That was obvious. Loud jokes with the guys next door, late-night chats about girls and gym routines, flirtatious smirks to every girl who walked past our corridor. He had this way of sitting shirtless, draped in a towel, scrolling through reels as if he weren't half naked in a confined space. I couldn't stop looking. I started timing my routine to avoid him. Showers before he woke, late-night library visits so I wouldn't have to share the same silence. But it didn't matter. He was everywhere. And worse, he was kind. "Need help with that assignment? You good, bro? You look zoned out. Here, take my charger. I'm done." Every word, every casual touch, a hand on my shoulder, a playful nudge, set fire to my skin. And every time, I swallowed it down like guilt. I had a boyfriend. His name was Rishabh. We met 2 years ago in a different city, in a different version of me. He knew I was in the closet, and he waited, patiently, silently. He never asked me to come out, but I knew it hurt him to be a secret. Calls were getting shorter. Messages fewer. And now there was Arjun. One evening, the hostel was nearly empty. Some inter-college fest had pulled most of the crowd. I stayed back. Partly to avoid people, partly because the idea of a silent room sounded like mercy. I was lying on my bed, earphones in, trying to read but failing, when the door creaked open. Arjun stepped in. Sweaty. Breathless. Shirt clinging to him like a second skin. His hair damp, his face flushed from running. He had probably been playing basketball again. "Oh," he said, surprised to see me. "Didn't think anyone was in." "I skipped the fest," I replied, trying not to look directly at his chest. He grabbed a towel, wiped his face, then sat down on his bed without changing. His shirt was damp enough to be see-through, sticking to the lines of his chest and the shadow of his abs. I tried to focus on my book, but the letters blurred. My heart was louder than the music in my ears. "You okay?" he asked, glancing up. I froze. "Huh? Yeah, just tired." He nodded. Then, without a word, peeled off his shirt and tossed it on the chair. Sat back, stretching his arms above his head, groaning a little. "I don't remember breathing. You ever just wish you could disappear for a bit?" he asked suddenly, eyes fixed on the ceiling. I blinked. "Yeah," I said softly. "All the time." He looked at me then, really looked, his gaze resting a second too long on mine. For a heartbeat, the room felt thick, as if something unspoken had passed between us. But then he smiled, reached for his phone, and lay back. "I'm too lazy to shower. Hope I don't stink." I laughed nervously. "I've smelled worse." He grinned. "Charming." He popped in his earphones, closed his eyes, and the conversation ended. But I couldn't stop watching him. His chest rising and falling, one hand resting behind his head, the other lightly drumming to his music. I wanted to touch him. No, I wanted him to touch me. And then guilt hit. Rishabh's face flickered in my mind, the way his voice used to calm me when I was spiraling, the way he said, "I trust you, Karan," before I left for college. I turned away, facing the wall. But my body wouldn't forget the heat in the room, or the way Arjun's lips had curled when he smiled. I told myself I was imagining things, that this was just longing filling the spaces loneliness had hollowed out. But a part of me, a quiet, dangerous part, hoped I wasn't. And that part was growing. I kept telling myself it was a phase, that crushes come and go, especially in a closed space like a hostel room where bodies live too close, and secrets sleep just beneath the skin. But Arjun wasn't going away. And neither was the heat between us. Over the next few weeks, something changed. Subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. He'd sit closer. Our shoulders would brush when we watched shows on my laptop. His eyes would linger just a second too long when I changed my shirt. Jokes got riskier. Touches got easier. It was nothing. It was everything. One night, after a party I didn't go to, Arjun stumbled into the room. Drunk, swaying slightly, his shirt untucked and his eyes glassy. "Karan," he said, dragging my name like a question, "you awake?" "Yeah," I replied, putting my book down. "You're wasted." He chuckled. "Not wasted. Buzzed." Happy buzzed. He kicked off his shoes, dropped his jeans, and collapsed on his bed in just boxers and a t-shirt. I tried to keep my eyes on the wall, but my peripheral vision betrayed me. "You're judging me," he mumbled, eyes half shut. "Not at all." He turned his head to face me, his voice softer now. "You're a good guy, you know. You don't say much, but you're always there." "I'm just quiet." "Quiet's underrated," he murmured. Silence wrapped around us, broken only by the buzz of a fan. His breathing slowed. He fell asleep within minutes. But I didn't. I watched him in the dim yellow light, the rise and fall of his chest, the way one arm hung off the bed. And I thought of Rishabh. He'd called earlier. I didn't pick up. I didn't want to hear his voice. I didn't want to remember that someone already loved me. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep. But Arjun was in the room, and my guilt had found a heartbeat. The next morning, things were normal again. Too normal. "Yo, did I say anything weird last night?" Arjun asked, brushing his teeth. "Just that I'm a good guy." He smirked. "Well, you are." And then he did something he'd never done before. He ruffled my hair. I froze. He didn't. "You should let loose more often, man. You're too tightly wound." I laughed, trying to make it sound natural. "I'm fine as I am." But I wasn't. I was cracking quietly. That afternoon, I was changing my shirt, thinking he was out. But Arjun walked in mid-move, shirt off, jeans halfway up. I scrambled to cover myself, awkwardly pulling my t-shirt down. He paused. "Relax," he said, eyes trailing over me just a moment too long. "We've seen worse in gym showers." I nodded, flushing. But then he stepped closer. Not too close, just close enough to smell his cologne, to feel the air move between us. "You work out?" he asked. "Not really." "You've got the frame for it," he said. Lean. Toned. There was something in his tone. Not playful. Not teasing. Curious. I searched his face for a smirk, a wink, some signal that this was just banter. But he looked dead serious. I started, but he was already turning to his bed, lying down like nothing happened. Later that night, we were watching a movie. The screen flickered in the dark, throwing shadows across his face. Our knees touched. I didn't move mine. Neither did he. He reached into the chips bag between us and casually said, "You ever thought about guys?" I looked at him sharply. "Just asking," he said, eyes still on the screen. "Some of the seniors talk about experimenting. It's not a big deal, right?" "I guess not. Like, doesn't make you gay or anything. Just curiosity." I didn't respond. My throat was suddenly dry. He looked at me then, eyes searching. "You ever been with one?" "Yes," I said, voice barely above a whisper. He blinked. "Oh." I waited for the question. The judgment. The awkward silence. But none came. Just a slow nod. "I thought so." "What do you mean?" I asked, a little defensive. "Nothing bad," he said quickly. "Just the way you look sometimes. It's not a problem." "Good to know," I muttered, looking away. "But if you've got someone, like a boyfriend or whatever, you should probably stay away from roommates like me." I turned to him, heart hammering. "Why?" He shrugged, a sly grin spreading. 'Cause I might not stop you. It landed between us like a lit match. And for a moment I swear the air caught fire. But then he yawned, stretched his arms, and said, "I'm crashing. Good night, bro." He got into bed. Lights off. Just like that. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Was he flirting? Was he confused? Was I reading too much into this? Or had I been waiting, hoping, for a crack in the wall to widen? I remembered Rishabh again. His last message. "Still miss you. Even when you go quiet." I didn't reply. Because the truth was, I didn't know if I still missed him. I only knew I wanted Arjun to look at me again like he did tonight. It happened during the first real storm of the season. The sky cracked open just after midnight. Rain pounded the windows, the kind of relentless downpour that made everything feel urgent, intimate. The power cut out 20 minutes later, plunging our room into warm, humming darkness. The generator hadn't kicked in yet, and the hostel corridors were dead quiet, like the world had paused. Arjun was lying on his bed, tossing a stress ball from one hand to the other. I was pretending to scroll through my phone, pretending I wasn't watching the shadows play across his arms and jawline. "You scared of storms?" he asked suddenly. I shook my head. "I like them. Makes everything feel slower." He nodded, rolling onto his side to face me. "You ever feel like your head's too loud?" I swallowed. "Most days." A pause. "Just the rain. I don't really talk to anyone about stuff," he said. "Feelings. Emotions. Shit like that. But with you, I don't know, it's easier." That word. Easier. Dangerous. I sat up. "Why me?" He shrugged. "Maybe because you don't judge. Or maybe I just feel safe." My chest tightened. "I don't know if that's good or bad." He laughed softly. "Neither do I." There was a flicker of lightning. In that second of clarity, I could see the way he was looking at me, unblinking, unguarded. The stress ball slipped from his hand, forgotten. "You ever feel like doing something even though you know you shouldn't?" he asked. "All the time," I said before I could stop myself. He stood up slowly and crossed the room, barefoot on the cool tile floor. He sat beside me on the edge of my bed. Our thighs touched. The air changed. "I've never kissed a guy," he said, voice barely above the storm. "But I think I've wanted to." My breath caught. "Arjun. You have someone," he whispered. "A boyfriend. Right?" I nodded, heart hammering. "Then stop me," he said. But I didn't. He leaned in slowly, testing the space between us, and I met him halfway. The first kiss wasn't gentle. It was searching, clumsy, too much and not enough. Months of glances, tension, and unanswered questions crashed together in the dark. His hand slid behind my neck, mine tangled in his shirt. We didn't speak. Words would have made it real. Words would have ruined it. He pulled me back onto the bed with him. Our legs intertwined. His breath was ragged, unsure. So was mine. There was no choreography, just instinct, electricity, and too many feelings we hadn't admitted out loud. He explored me like he was both afraid and starving, fingers trailing over skin like he didn't know where to stop. I didn't want him to. My mind flickered. Rishabh's voice, his smile, the night he told me he loved me under a city full of lights. I pushed it away. I couldn't hold two truths at once. When Arjun's lips brushed my neck, I felt my resolve split open. We moved together in silence. No labels, no promises, just this one electric night carved out of loneliness and confusion. The storm outside mirrored the chaos inside me. Loud, primal, necessary. Afterward, we lay tangled in the sheets, not touching anymore, our breathing the only sound between us. I turned to face him. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. "I didn't plan this," I whispered. "I know," he said. "You're still straight." He exhaled. "I don't know what the fuck I am." Neither did I. The guilt came later, like a rising tide I couldn't outswim. But in that room, in that moment, there was only the heat of skin and the echo of something neither of us could name. I closed my eyes, trying to memorize how it felt to be wanted by someone who wasn't mine. It was dangerous, addictive, wrong. But it was real. And that terrified me. Arjun shifted beside me, his voice low. We probably shouldn't talk about this, huh? No, I said. We probably shouldn't. But we would. Because this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of everything we were about to ruin. Morning came like punishment. The rain had stopped. The light creeping in through the curtains was too honest, too sharp. It made everything real. His clothes on the floor, the faint scent of his body still clinging to my skin, the ache between my ribs. Arjun was already up, sitting on the edge of his bed, shirtless, staring at his phone but not really scrolling. He didn't look at me. I stayed silent, pulling the blanket tighter around my body like it could shield me from what we'd done. The air between us was loaded, hot with things unsaid, cold with avoidance. He finally spoke. So, that happened. I swallowed. Yeah. More silence. Then he stood up, walked over to the window, and lit a cigarette with shaking fingers. He didn't smoke often. Only when he didn't know what else to do with his hands. You regret it? I asked, even though I didn't want the answer. He exhaled, long and slow. I don't know. I sat up, heart raw. I do. But not for the reason you think. His eyes flicked to me. Because of your boyfriend? Because it wasn't supposed to mean something, I said, voice cracking. But it did. That caught him off guard. He turned away, ran a hand through his hair, and laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Fuck, he muttered. I was hoping you'd say it was just sex. So was I. He paced. I watched. You're not the only one confused, Karan. I've been questioning shit since you moved in. You were always so quiet, but I felt something. Then why didn't you say anything? Because I didn't want to be this guy, he exploded. The guy who screws with someone's head. Or someone's relationship. His voice echoed too loudly in the small room. I loved Rishabh, I said quietly. Loved? I don't know anymore. He sat back down, hands clenched. Do you hate me? No. I hate myself more. He nodded, jaw tight. Good. Then we're even. The next few days were worse than silence. They were polite. Civil, measured. We talked like roommates again. Shared toothpaste. Passed the ketchup bottle. Nodded at each other like everything was fine. It wasn't. Inside, I was unraveling. I stopped answering Rishabh's calls. Eventually, he stopped calling. One night, he sent a final message. You don't have to explain. Just don't lie to me. I stared at it for hours before replying. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. There was no reply. Arjun noticed. Of course he did. He always noticed. You told him? He asked softly, one night while we sat in darkness. I owed him that much. He nodded. So what now? I don't know, I said. You. He looked at me then, not like a secret, not like a mistake. Just like a person trying to figure out who he really was. I don't know who I am anymore, he admitted. Last month, I thought I had everything figured out, college girl's life. Now I can't even look at myself without thinking about you. That's not my fault, I whispered. I didn't say it was. But it was, in some way. We both held the match that lit the fire. Later that night, he crawled into my bed, not for sex, not for touch. Just to lie beside me. His fingers brushed mine. A silent apology. I didn't pull away. The next morning, he packed a bag. I'm going to stay in a friend's room for a while, he said. I nodded. That's fair. Maybe we crossed a line we shouldn't have. Maybe we needed to. He paused by the door. For what it's worth, I don't regret knowing you. I looked up. Me neither. And then he was gone. That night, I lay in the room alone. No jokes. No music. No tension. Just silence, and the echo of every choice I couldn't take back. Infidelity doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. It whispers in the way someone looks at you across a room, in the way your hand lingers a moment too long, in the stories you stop telling your partner because they're not him anymore. I hurt Rishabh. I betrayed someone who loved me unconditionally. But I also saw a different side of myself, messy, uncertain, craving to be understood without explanation. And Arjun, he didn't just tempt me. He showed me a version of love I didn't know I wanted. Not neat, not pure, but painfully honest. The next time Arjun and I crossed paths in the cafeteria, he smiled faintly. I smiled back. We didn't sit together. We didn't need to. What happened between us wasn't built to last. It was built to wake us up. To who we are. To who we aren't. To what it means to want the wrong person at the right time. And sometimes, that's the story. Not a love story, but a story that makes love harder to forget.